Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This episode is basically going to be about the sourdough starter. I'm hoping you can learn from my mistakes, and I have maybe what I would consider just some additional tips. So I started this starter, I think it was about at least 3 weeks ago, at least, maybe a little more, 3 to 4. And I'm still not using it for baking yet. Let me tell you what's been going on. So when I first started it, okay, I noticed that like 6-7 days had gone by and just nothing really was happening. And I didn't know why. So I started to look into that, and I discovered that I was using a bleached all-purpose flour. So that was my biggest mistake when starting this. Do not use bleached flour. So the whole point of a starter, a sourdough starter, is that the bacteria that are naturally occurring around the air and then eventually in here, they eat away at the sugars and they ferment and they create the alcohols and it creates your starter. But if you have bleached flour, the chemicals in that are probably killing all that bacteria, right? So that explains why nothing was happening with my starter. So I went out and bought myself unbleached flour. Now, it feels so dumb because I should have known to not use bleached flour, but I just didn't read the label. I didn't notice it was bleached. But anyway, I went out and I bought King Arthur's flour, unbleached. Then after several days of sort of restarting it with this new flour, I noticed that the top layer, okay, of the starter was starting to kind of like harden. I started to look into that as well. Why is the top layer of my starter hardening? Didn't seem like it should be. It didn't seem like that should be happening. I come to find out that the Need Ace brand of this sort of sourdough starter kit comes with like a little sort of cheesecloth type of cover with an elastic band, and I was originally using that. And so what was happening was it was getting too much air, which was causing the top layer to harden. So I discovered what I need to use is a solid lid, okay? But you don't want to completely shut it, okay? Because there are gases that need to escape. So you want to kind of just gently put it on, okay? But don't tighten the lid. This way the air does not get inside and harden that top layer, but the gases can escape. Okay, another problem I was having with my starter. This is a bit of a love project, and you're gonna need to be patient because the elements, there's so many different things that can affect your starter. So the next thing that was affecting my starter was temperature. And by the way, this is probably the coolest part of the Need Ace brand kit, is this thermometer that goes right onto the glass jar, because you know exactly what the temperature is for your starter, and you can better understand, okay, well, I have it in too cold of a spot or I have it in too hot of a spot. So what's happening in the airstream, you know, I live in an airstream, is that this is basically a metal container, okay? So the days where we have been located for the past several weeks has been Colorado and now Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The days are hot and the nights have ranged anywhere from the high 40s into the mid 50s. So that means that the nights are very cold, and therefore the airstream gets very cold. And when I keep this in any of our cabinets, it gets too cold. It needs to be between like 70 and 85 degrees for this to kind of like do its thing. But it was the temperature of the starter was definitely falling way below 70 degrees. And so that was also keeping it from fermenting properly. So I wasn't seeing bubbles and I wasn't seeing things happen. I tried so many ways to keep it warm. I tried the microwave oven, too cold. I even put it inside of an oven mitt, right? Thinking it would keep it warm. Nope. So finally my husband had the brilliant idea of putting it next to the internet router up in a cabinet. I hadn't even thought about that. And that has done the trick perfectly. It keeps it overnight, probably at around 82 degrees, which is perfect. That's been working. So I'm gonna see if you can see all the bubbles now. Can you see all the bubbles in there? I hope it shows clearly. Right, so it's definitely bubbling now. It's doing what it's supposed to do as far as the bubbles go. So that's very reassuring. And it is growing, okay? So like maybe I will, every day or in the first week of your starter, you have to discard every day and add more flour and water. If you haven't seen my first video, I go over that in more detail, and I will put a link to that here. I think they're called cards. I'll put that here. But today, what I really want to say is, after I feed it, within that first 24 hours after I feed it, it does grow and it does double. But it's not doubling within 6 hours, and it has to double within 6 hours to be ready to bake. So I'm not there yet, and that's okay. And I think that's something I've really wanted to say also, is that this is a natural process. This is, I could just be like, well, I'm just gonna make my bread, and then it's not gonna come out good. And I don't really feel the need to rush it. I just don't. The older sourdough starter gets, the better it gets, the better the bread is. So that's really what I'm just waiting for it to tell me, hey Maria, I'm ready, let's go. And it's not telling me that yet. By the way, I haven't named it yet, and it's my understanding that people name their sourdough starter, and I have not named it yet. The last thing I'm going to mention, and it has nothing to do with the performance of the starter or anything, it's more just something that I've discovered I might want, is a bigger mouth opening. I want a jar that is just a little wider, or maybe even square. I don't know. I'm finding that the mouth is small, and so when I go to feed it, it kind of gets all over the glass. It's, and at the end of the day, you have to keep all of this clean. I mean, you don't have to clean it every day, but my understanding is, if things sit around there too much, it can mold, and I don't want to have to restart my starter again, right? So I think I might find a new container with a little bigger opening, so that when I add things, it just goes straight to the bottom and doesn't get all dirty on top. That's probably my single complaint about this product, the Knead Ace, is the size of the mouth opening. That's it. Everything else is cool. It's fine. I like that you put here when you feed it, so you don't forget. I love, as I said, the thermometer, the level it's at after you feed it, right? So if and when it's doubled in size. That's all really cool. I just wish it was a little wider on top. So that's the episode for today. I hope you learned from my mistakes, and I hope that any of these tips I gave you work for you, and you don't have to waste the time I had to waste. And just be patient with your starter, be patient. Like, before you know it, it will be working the way it needs to be working, and you'll have beautiful bread. And I can't wait to share an actual video of me making bread. So thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks so much.